Hello there, and welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight, to this quiet corner of the internet where curiosity meets comfort and wonder settles gently into rest. Whether you're tucked up in bed with the covers pulled just right, curled up on a couch with a cup of tea growing cool in your hands, or simply seeking a moment of calm in the middle of a restless day, you're exactly where you need to be. Tonight, we're embarking on a slow, soothing journey through one of Earth's most profound mysteries, the ancient rhythm that governs all life on our planet. We're going to explore the hidden clockwork behind the seasons, that gentle, inexorable dance between our world and the sun that has been shaping every breath, every bloom, and every quiet snowfall for billions of years. Think of this as your invitation to drift through time itself, following the subtle threads that weave summer's warmth into autumn's gold, winter's stillness into spring's awakening. Now, I should give you a gentle warning. While this video is designed to help you unwind and ease into rest, there's always the small risk that it might be just interesting enough to keep you listening. But if you do find yourself wide-eyed at midnight, pondering axial tilts and orbital mechanics, well, at least you'll have learned something beautiful about the clockwork of our cosmos. Before we begin our journey, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what season is painting your corner of the planet? Are you listening to this during the long golden evenings of summer, when daylight seems to stretch forever? Or perhaps you're tucked away in winter's embrace, where darkness falls early and the world feels hushed and still. Whether you're experiencing the tender green of spring or autumn's bittersweet farewell, it's lovely to have you here, sharing in this quiet exploration. If you find these gentle wanderings through science helpful, whether they carry you towards sleep or simply settle your thoughts after a long day, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to The Sleepy Scientist. It helps more curious souls find their way here, and it means more people can drift off with minds full of wonder rather than worry. And just a quick, gentle reminder, while we'll be talking about temperature, sunlight, and the ways our planet moves through space, this video is purely for educational and relaxation purposes. It's not intended as medical advice or a substitute for professional care. If you have any concerns about seasonal changes affecting your health or well-being, please consult a qualified healthcare professional. So, close your eyes if you'd like, let your shoulders drop, and take a long, slow breath. Tonight, we're going to uncover the hidden mathematics of seasons, the elegant celestial choreography that determines why leaves turn gold, why bears sleep through winter, and why your heart might lift just a little when you catch that first hint of spring in the air. We'll discover how a tilt of just 23.5 degrees shapes every story of renewal and rest that plays out on our planet. Let's begin, shall we? Picture this. You're standing in a vast, dark room, holding a flashlight. In the center of this room sits a large, spinning globe, our Earth tilted slightly, like a top that's begun to wobble. As you walk slowly around this globe, shining your light upon it, you're playing the role of the sun, and what you're witnessing is the birth of seasons themselves. It's that simple, and yet that profound. The rhythm of seasons isn't just weather changing its mind from month to month. It's not the atmosphere getting bored with warmth and deciding to try cold for a while. No, what we call the seasons is actually the result of one of the most elegant dances in our solar system. A dance between distance and angle, between the steady pull of gravity and the ancient momentum of a world spinning through space. For most of human history, people believed the seasons came from our planet moving closer to and farther from the sun. It makes intuitive sense, doesn't it? Closer means warmer, farther means cooler. Simple, logical, and completely wrong. The truth, as it so often is in science, is far more beautiful and strange. Our planet does indeed follow an elliptical path around the sun, not a perfect circle. And yes, we do get a little closer and a little farther from our star as the year progresses. But here's the delightful twist. that would surprise most people. Earth is actually closest to the sun in early January, right in the depths of winter for those of us in the northern hemisphere. We're farthest away in early July, when summer heat makes the pavement shimmer and sends us searching for shade. If distance determines seasons, January should be blazing hot and July should be pleasantly cool. Instead, we have it precisely backward. The real answer lies not in how far we are from the sun, but in how we're positioned relative to it. The secret is in the tilt. 23.5 degrees? It's such a modest number, isn't it? Less than the angle of a steep staircase, smaller than the slope of most roofs. And yet this gentle inclination, this subtle lean in our planet's posture as it spins, is responsible for every season that has ever graced the Earth. It's the angle that brought you every spring morning you've ever treasured, every autumn afternoon that made you pause and breathe deeply, every winter evening when the world felt hushed and holy. Imagine Earth as a spinning top that never quite stands upright. As our tilted planet orbits the sun over the course of a year, different parts of its surface lean toward or away from the sun's rays. When the northern hemisphere tilts toward the sun, those regions receive more direct sunlight, longer days, shorter nights, and the concentrated energy that we call summer. Meanwhile, the southern hemisphere tilts away, receiving less direct light and experiencing winter. 6 months later, the situation reverses. The northern hemisphere tilts away from the sun, bringing shorter days and the slanted, golden light of winter, while the southern hemisphere leans into summer's embrace. It's like a great, slow seesaw in space, with the two halves of our world taking turns basking in the sun's full attention. This tilt doesn't just create seasons, it creates the very rhythm of life on Earth. Without it, every day would be exactly like every other day. The sun would rise and set at the same time year after year. There would be no migration of birds following the warmth, no bears preparing for winter's sleep, no trees knowing when to shed their leaves or when to burst into bloom. The world would be climatically flat, predictable, and far less alive. But we don't live in that unchanging world. We live on a planet that breathes with the seasons, that pulses between rest and renewal, that offers us the gift of variety in a universe that could easily have been monotonous. And all of this richness, all of this beautiful complexity, flows from one simple geometric fact. Our planet spins at a slight angle. The effects of this tilt ripple through every aspect of life on Earth in ways both obvious and subtle. The most apparent is the changing length of days and nights. In summer, when your hemisphere tilts toward the sun, the days stretch long and luxurious, with sunlight lingering well into the evening. The sun climbs high in the sky, delivering its energy almost straight down, warming the earth with focused intensity. Winter brings the opposite gift, not less light, exactly, but light that arrives at a different angle. The sun stays low on the horizon, casting long shadows and painting everything in golden, slanted rays. The same amount of solar energy that might heat a small area intensely in summer gets spread across a much larger area in winter, like butter scraped thin across too much bread. The days grow short and precious, darkness arriving early and staying late, creating the hushed, inward-turning quality that makes winter evenings feel so different from summer ones. But the tilt does something even more subtle and profound than changing day length. It changes the very quality of sunlight itself. In summer, when the sun is high overhead, its rays travel through less atmosphere to reach you. The light is strong, direct, and efficient. In winter, those same rays must travel through much more of Earth's atmospheric blanket, more air, more particles, more opportunities to be scattered and softened. This is why winter light often feels different. Not just dimmer, but somehow more gentle, more diffused, painted in warmer colours, even though the season itself is cold. This interplay between angle and atmosphere creates the subtle variations in light quality that photographers and artists have been trying to capture for centuries. The crisp, white light of a winter morning, the golden hour that stretches longer in autumn, the bright, almost harsh clarity of a summer noon. Each season brings its own palette of light, its own mood painted across the sky. And it's not just the light that changes with the tilt, it's the very behavior of our atmosphere. As different parts of the planet receive more or less solar energy, the great currents of air and water that circulate around the globe shift and flow in response. Weather patterns march across continents following invisible highways laid down by the seasonal distribution of sunlight. Ocean currents adjust their paths. The jet stream meanders like a river changing course, bringing warm air north or pulling cold air south, painting the map of the world with temperature and precipitation in patterns that shift with the seasons. The seasonal rhythm created by Earth's tilt doesn't just influence weather, it orchestrates life itself. Plants have evolved intricate mechanisms to sense the changing length of days, using this information to time their growth, flowering, and dormancy. They're living calendars, responding to the angle of sunlight with a precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker proud. Animals, too, dance to the rhythm of the tilt. Birds time their migrations not just to temperature, but to the subtle changes in day length that signal when it's time to move. Bears and other hibernating animals begin their preparations for winter sleep as the days grow shorter, their bodies responding to ancient cues written in the language of light and shadow. Even we humans, for all our artificial lighting and climate-controlled environments, still feel the pull of the seasons in our bones. Our sleep patterns shift subtly with the changing light. Our moods rise and fall with the sun's angle. Our bodies produce different levels of hormones as the seasons change, responding to rhythms that are literally astronomical in their origin. The tilt that creates our seasons is itself a story written in deep time. Scientists believe it was caused by a collision in the early days of our solar system, when a Mars-sized object crashed into the young Earth with such force that it not only knocked our planet off its vertical axis, but also threw enough material into space to eventually form our moon. In other words, the seasons we experience today, every spring awakening, every autumn harvest, every winter's rest, are the gentle, ongoing consequences of a catastrophic impact that occurred over 4 billion years ago. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? That the rhythm that shapes our lives, that determines when flowers bloom and when leaves fall, that influences everything from our agricultural cycles to our holiday traditions, all stems from a cosmic accident in the deep past. What seemed like destruction became creation. What appeared to be chaos became the source of Earth's most beautiful order. And that tilt, that 23.5-degree angle that shapes everything we know about seasonal change, isn't even constant. It shifts slowly over long periods of time, wobbling like a spinning top as it responds to the gravitational pull of other planets. This wobble, combined with changes in Earth's orbit, creates cycles within cycles, longer rhythms that play out over thousands of years, contributing to ice ages and warm periods that have shaped the course of life on our planet. But for now, in this moment, in your lifetime and mine, the tilt is steady enough to give us the predictable rhythm of seasons that we know and love. Spring will follow winter, summer will follow spring, and autumn will follow summer, as reliable as clockwork, as certain as sunrise. This rhythm has been the backdrop to every human story ever told, every poem ever written about the passing of time, every harvest celebration, and every winter solitude. As we continue our gentle exploration of climate's hidden clock, we'll discover how this simple tilt creates complexity beyond imagination, how it drives the great circulation patterns of our atmosphere and oceans, how it creates the conditions for life to flourish and adapt, and how it connects every living thing on Earth in a web of seasonal interdependence that spans from the tiniest microbe to the largest whale. But that story is still unfolding, like the seasons themselves, patient and persistent and full of quiet wonders waiting to be discovered. Now, Let's follow this seasonal rhythm as it flows through the living world, painting landscapes in colours that change like pages turning in an ancient book. Because the tilt of our planet doesn't just create abstract patterns of light and shadow, it creates the most intricate biological symphony ever composed, with every creature, every plant, every ecosystem playing its part in perfect time. Think about the last time you noticed the very first hint of spring. Perhaps it was a single brave crocus pushing through the last patches of snow. Or maybe it was that subtle shift in the quality of morning light that made you pause and think, something's different. What you were witnessing wasn't just a plant deciding to grow, or the sun arbitrarily becoming brighter. You were seeing the response to a signal that had travelled 93 million miles through space, carrying information about Earth's position in its eternal dance around the sun. Plants are perhaps the most sophisticated astronomers on our planet. They don't need telescopes or calculations. They've evolved exquisite mechanisms to read the sky like a clock. As the days grow longer in spring, light-sensitive proteins in leaves and stems detect not just the increasing brightness, but the precise duration of daylight. This phenomenon, called photoperiodism, allows plants to know exactly where they are in the year's cycle. A cherry tree doesn't bloom because it's warm, it blooms because the length of day has reached a specific threshold that tells it spring has truly arrived. This is why you might see cherry blossoms covered in snow, their delicate petals unfurling despite the cold. The tree isn't confused. It's responding to the more reliable signal of day length rather than the variable whims of weather. Temperature can fluctuate wildly from day to day, but the steady increase in daylight hours is as dependable as the orbital mechanics that create it. This same astronomical precision governs the great migrations that have captured human imagination for millennia. Arctic terns, those remarkable birds that see more daylight than any other creature on Earth, don't simply follow warm weather as they travel from Arctic to Antarctic and back again each year. They're following the sun itself, chasing the longest days as they occur first in one hemisphere, then the other. Their internal compass is calibrated not just to magnetic fields, but to the celestial rhythms created by our planet's tilt. Imagine the complexity of this navigation system. A bird weighing less than 4 ounces carries within its small brain a biological computer capable of tracking not just the sun's daily path across the sky, but its seasonal changes in height and direction. It can sense the subtle variations in daylight length that signal when it's time to begin an 11,000-mile journey. And it does this with a precision that would challenge our best GPS systems, arriving at destinations it has never seen before, with timing that synchronizes perfectly with local seasonal conditions. But it's not just the dramatic migrations that capture our attention. The seasonal rhythm touches every aspect of life in ways both grand and subtle. Deep in the soil, earthworms adjust their behavior to the changing seasons, burrowing deeper as winter approaches and rising closer to the surface as spring warmth penetrates the earth. Their movements aerate the soil at precisely the times when plant roots need oxygen most. Fungi form partnerships with tree roots, sharing nutrients in exchanges that intensify in autumn as trees prepare for winter's dormancy and increase again in spring as new growth begins. Even the invisible world responds to seasonal cues. The communities of bacteria and microorganisms that live in soil, in water, in the air around us, shift their activity patterns with the seasons. They're part of vast nutrient cycles that pulse with the rhythm of the tilted earth, breaking down autumn's fallen leaves to provide the minerals needed for spring's new growth, processing winter's accumulated organic matter to fuel summer's abundance. This seasonal orchestration creates what ecologists call phenology, the study of life's timing in relation to climatic conditions. It's the science of when things happen in nature, and it reveals a world of connections that would be impossible without the steady rhythm of our tilted planet. The timing of leaf emergence is synchronized with the arrival of insects that feed on young foliage, which in turn is synchronized with the nesting of birds that feed on those insects, which connects to the fruiting of plants that depend on birds for seed dispersal. Each species has evolved to play its part at exactly the right moment in the seasonal symphony. Consider the relationship between oak trees and the caterpillars that feed on their leaves. The trees time their leaf emergence to coincide with warming spring temperatures, but the caterpillars hatch based on day length. Usually, these two cues align perfectly, ensuring that hungry caterpillars find tender young leaves waiting for them. But climate change is beginning to disrupt this ancient synchronization, with warming temperatures advancing leaf emergence while day length remains constant. This mismatch, called phenological asynchrony, is one of the subtle ways that changing climate threatens the intricate relationships that have evolved over millions of years. The seasonal rhythm also creates what we might call the planet's breathing pattern. In spring and summer, when plant growth accelerates across vast areas of land, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere actually drops as vegetation absorbs it for photosynthesis. In autumn and winter, as plants shed leaves and reduce their photosynthetic activity, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels rise again. This annual pulse can be measured from space, a planetary respiratory cycle driven by the tilt of our world. Forests provide some of the most spectacular examples of seasonal transformation. The deciduous forests of temperate regions have evolved one of nature's most beautiful solutions to the challenge of seasonal variation. Rather than struggle to maintain their leaves through winter's cold and reduced light, these trees simply shed them, entering a state of dormancy that allows them to survive months when photosynthesis would be inefficient or impossible. But this apparent simplicity conceals remarkable complexity. The brilliant colours of autumn foliage aren't just a pretty accident, they're the visible signs of sophisticated biochemical processes. As days shorten and temperatures cool, trees begin breaking down the chlorophyll in their leaves, revealing other pigments that were always present but masked by green. The yellows and oranges come from carotenoids, the same compounds that colour carrots and egg yolks. The reds and purples are anthocyanins, produced fresh each autumn as part of the tree's preparation for winter. Why produce these red pigments at the very moment when leaves are about to be discarded? Scientists believe they may serve as a kind of sunscreen, protecting the tree's delicate cellular machinery during the vulnerable process of leaf senescence. Even in death, nature exhibits a thoughtful elegance that speaks to the deep wisdom embedded in evolutionary adaptation to seasonal rhythm. The underground world transforms with the seasons too, though we rarely see these changes. In temperate soils, freeze-thaw cycles created by seasonal temperature variation physically break down rocks and mix soil layers, creating the complex soil profiles that support diverse plant communities. Soil organisms from microscopic bacteria to earthworms and larger burrowing animals adjust their activity levels and depth distributions as seasons change, creating a dynamic underground ecosystem that pulses in rhythm with the world above. Even the chemistry of streams and lakes follows seasonal patterns. Spring snowmelt and increased rainfall flush nutrients from soil into waterways, triggering blooms of algae and aquatic plants that form the base of freshwater food webs. As summer progresses and water levels drop, nutrient concentrations increase, supporting different communities of aquatic life. Winter's ice cover creates entirely different conditions, reducing oxygen levels and limiting light penetration, forcing aquatic ecosystems into their own version of hibernation. The seasonal rhythm extends into the oceans as well, though the effects are more subtle and complex than on land. Seasonal changes in temperature and daylight hours drive the timing of phytoplankton blooms, those massive proliferations of microscopic marine plants that form the foundation of ocean food webs. These blooms follow the sun, occurring earlier in the year at lower latitudes and later at higher latitudes, creating waves of productivity that sweep across ocean basins like slow-motion tsunamis of life. Marine animals have evolved to time their reproduction, migration, and feeding to coincide with these planktonic blooms. Whales undertake some of the longest migrations in the animal kingdom, traveling between breeding grounds in warm waters and feeding areas where seasonal upwelling brings nutrients to the surface. Their entire life cycle is choreographed to the rhythm of seasonal oceanic productivity, itself driven by the angle of sunlight on water. What makes all of this even more remarkable is how these seasonal patterns have shaped human culture and consciousness. We are not separate from the natural world's response to our tilted planet. We are part of it. Our ancestors survived by reading the subtle signs of seasonal change, knowing when to plant and when to harvest, when to preserve food for winter, and when to celebrate spring's return. These ancient rhythms are embedded in our holidays and traditions. The celebration of light returning during winter solstice appears in cultures around the world, from Christmas to Diwali to Hanukkah. Spring festivals celebrate renewal and rebirth. Harvest celebrations mark autumn's abundance. Even in our modern, artificially lit world, we still feel the pull of these ancient patterns, the way our moods shift subtly with the seasons, the way we crave different foods at different times of year, the way certain memories seem tied to particular seasonal moments. Our bodies too respond to seasonal rhythms in ways we're only beginning to understand. Seasonal affective disorder is just the most obvious example of how changes in daylight hours affect human physiology. Our sleep patterns, hormone production, immune system function, and even cognitive performance all show subtle seasonal variations. We are, quite literally, creatures of the light, shaped by the same astronomical forces that determine when birds migrate and when flowers bloom. As we drift deeper into understanding climate's hidden clock, we begin to see that the 23.5-degree tilt of our planet has created far more than just weather patterns. It has created the very framework within which life on Earth has evolved, adapted, and flourished. Every ecosystem, every species, every individual organism carries within it the memory of countless seasonal cycles, the accumulated wisdom of billions of years of life adapting to the rhythm of our tilted world. This is the true miracle of seasons, not just that they exist, but that they have become so thoroughly woven into the fabric of life that we can barely imagine a world without them. The tilt that creates our seasons has shaped every story of growth and rest, every pattern of abundance and scarcity, every cycle of death and renewal that plays out across our planet. It connects the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, the briefest wildflower to the most ancient tree, all dancing together to the same celestial music. And the dance continues, as it has for eons, as reliable as gravity, as predictable as the stars, yet endlessly creative in its variations. But this cosmic dance isn't just about the grand gestures, the migrations, and the blooms that capture our attention. It's also about the quiet, almost imperceptible ways that seasonal rhythms weave themselves into the most intimate details of life on Earth. There are stories written in tree rings, in the shells of mollusks, in the very bones of animals, all telling the tale of how life has learned to live in harmony with our planet's orbital waltz. Consider the humble tree ring, that simple pattern of light and dark bands that form in the trunk of a tree each year. What we're looking at when we examine these rings isn't just the passage of time, it's a record of how each season felt to that particular tree, in that particular place, during that particular year. The wide, pale bands formed during spring's rapid growth tell us about wet seasons with abundant sunshine. The narrow, dark bands of autumn growth speak of drought years, cold summers, or perhaps the stress of insect infestations timed to the tree's vulnerable moments. These rings are nature's own journals, written in wood and preserved for centuries. Scientists can read them like pages in a book, learning about climate patterns that occurred long before humans kept weather records. They reveal the rhythms within rhythms, not just the annual pulse of seasons, but the longer cycles of abundance and scarcity, the decades of plenty and the years of hardship, all inscribed in the growing tissue of trees that stood witness to time passing. The precision of this seasonal recording system is breathtaking. In some species, you can see not just annual rings, but the subtle variations that occur within a single growing season. Early wood formed in spring's rush of growth looks different from late wood formed as autumn approaches and the tree begins to prepare for winter's dormancy. Some trees even record false rings, thin bands that form when unusual weather creates a brief growing season within a season, like a warm spell in autumn that tricks the tree into thinking spring has returned. Animals too carry seasonal records in their bodies. The otolith's tiny calcium carbonate structures in fish ears grow in seasonal patterns, laying down layers like geological sediments. Marine biologists can examine these structures and read the life history of a fish, seeing how it grew during each season of its life, whether it experienced abundant food or lean times, how it responded to changes in water temperature and seasonal productivity. Even more remarkably, some animals adjust their very physiology to match seasonal demands. Arctic mammals grow different types of fur for summer and winter, not just thicker or thinner coats, but fundamentally different hair structures optimized for different thermal challenges. The hollow, air-filled guard hairs of a polar bear's winter coat provide insulation that would be unnecessary and cumbersome in summer, so they're shed and replaced with a completely different type of fur as seasons change. Birds that migrate across vast distances don't just navigate by the stars and magnetic fields, they actually remodel their internal organs to match the demands of their journey. Before a long migration, a bird's flight muscles increase in size, while its digestive organs shrink, optimizing its body for the demands of sustained flight rather than feeding. Upon arrival at their destination, this process reverses, with digestive organs expanding again to take advantage of seasonal food abundance, while flight muscles reduce to conserve energy. It's like having a body that can reconfigure itself based on the calendar. The seasonal rhythm even extends into the realm of behavior in ways that seem almost magical. Many animals not only respond to current seasonal conditions, but anticipate future ones. Squirrels begin caching nuts for winter, while autumn is still warm and food is abundant. They're not responding to scarcity, they're preparing for it based on internal calendars calibrated to day length and other seasonal cues. This anticipatory behavior suggests that the rhythm of seasons has become so deeply embedded in life that organisms have evolved the ability to live slightly in the future, preparing for conditions that haven't yet arrived. Plants exhibent similar prescience. Many temperate trees begin preparing for winter dormancy while summer is still in full swing, gradually reducing their growth rate and beginning to move nutrients from leaves to roots long before the first frost. They're reading subtle changes in day length and light quality that humans might not even notice, responding to astronomical signals that tell them winter is coming even when the weather is still warm. This anticipatory quality of life creates one of the most beautiful aspects of seasonal change, the way transitions occur gradually rather than suddenly. Spring doesn't arrive all at once on a particular day marked on a calendar. Instead, it creeps in slowly, announced by 1,000 small changes that accumulate over weeks and months. The angle of sunlight shifts imperceptibly day by day. Soil temperatures rise gradually. Day length increases at a predictable rate. And life responds to these changes in layers, with different species and different individuals responding to different cues at slightly different times. This creates the phenomenon ecologists call the green wave, the progressive awakening of plant life as spring moves across the landscape. If you could watch from space, you would see a literal wave of green spreading across continents as warming temperatures and lengthening days trigger plant growth. The wave moves predictably from south to north in the northern hemisphere, following isotherms lines of equal temperature as they advance with the changing season. Animals that depend on this green wave have learned to surf it, timing their movements to stay within the narrow window of optimal conditions. Migrating herbivores like caribou don't just travel from winter to summer ranges, they time their journey to match the green wave, arriving at each location just as new plant growth provides the most nutritious forage. They're essentially following spring itself as it spreads across the landscape, living in a perpetual season of renewal. The precision of this timing is extraordinary. Some migrating birds arrive at their breeding grounds within a day or two of the same date each year, even though their journey may cover thousands of miles and take weeks to complete. They're not just traveling through space, they're traveling through time, following seasonal cues with a reliability that makes our best clocks seem crude by comparison. But perhaps the most profound aspect of seasonal rhythm is how it creates the pattern of renewal that makes long-term life possible on Earth. Without the regular cycle of growth and dormancy, abundance and scarcity, activity and rest, the living world would quickly exhaust itself. The seasonal pulse provides natural breaks in the action times for recovery, for repair, for the quiet work of preparation that makes future abundance possible. Winter, often seen as the harsh season, is actually essential to the health of many ecosystems. The cold temperatures kill off disease organisms and pest insects that would otherwise multiply unchecked. The dormancy period allows perennial plants to redirect energy from growth to maintenance, repairing cellular damage and building reserves for the next growing season. Many seeds require the cold treatment of winter, called vernalization, before they can germinate properly in spring. Even ecosystems that don't experience traditional winter have their own versions of seasonal rest. Tropical rainforests have dry seasons when growth slows, and many trees drop their leaves despite warm temperatures. Desert ecosystems pulse with the irregular rhythm of rare rainfall events, with entire landscapes remaining dormant for months or even years before exploding into bloom when conditions are right. This pattern of alternating activity and rest, of boom and bust, of growth and dormancy, creates resilience. Systems that pulse are more stable than systems that try to maintain constant activity. They can survive disturbances, adapt to changing conditions, and persist through challenges that would overwhelm a more rigid system. The seasonal rhythm doesn't just make life possible, it makes life sustainable over the long term. Human cultures have always recognized this wisdom. Traditional agricultural societies organized their entire social calendar around seasonal rhythms, with periods of intense activity during planting and harvest seasons, balanced by quieter times of rest and reflection during winter months. Many traditional cultures had specific seasons for different activities, times for hunting, times for gathering, times for ceremony, times for storytelling. These weren't arbitrary conventions, but practical adaptations to the natural rhythm of productivity and rest that governs all life. Even our modern industrial society, despite its apparent disconnection from natural rhythms, still shows traces of seasonal organization. Academic calendars follow ancient patterns of summer rest and autumn renewal. Many businesses experience seasonal fluctuations in activity. Our bodies still respond to seasonal changes in ways that affect everything from our sleep patterns to our immune system function. Yet, as we've become more disconnected from the natural world, we've perhaps lost some appreciation for the profound wisdom embedded in seasonal rhythm. We live in artificially lit environments that disguise the changing length of days. We eat foods from around the world regardless of local seasons. We maintain the same activity levels year-round, expecting ourselves to be equally productive in January's short days as in June's long ones. This disconnection may come at a cost. Growing research suggests that some of the stress and health problems common in modern life may be related to our disruption of natural circadian and seasonal rhythms. We're fighting against patterns that are literally written into our DNA, encoded through millions of years of evolution on a tilted planet. But even in our climate-controlled, artificially lit world, the seasonal rhythm continues to pulse through everything around us. The air pressure changes subtly as weather patterns shift with the seasons. The angle of sunlight streaming through windows traces different patterns across our floors as the year progresses. The foods that taste best to us often align with what's naturally in season, even when we're not consciously aware of it. And something deep within us still responds to these ancient cues. We feel differently in spring than we do in autumn, regardless of the temperature indoors. We're drawn to different activities, different foods, different moods, as the seasons change. Children seem to sense seasonal transitions even more acutely than adults, perhaps because they're still more closely tuned to natural rhythms. This persistent influence of seasonal rhythm in our modern world suggests something profound about the relationship between life and our tilted planet. We are not separate from the natural world, we are part of it. The same astronomical forces that determine when birds migrate and when flowers bloom are still at work in our bodies, our minds, our hearts. We carry within ourselves the memory of countless seasonal cycles, the accumulated wisdom of our ancestors who lived more intimately with the rhythm of the tilted Earth. As we continue to explore climate's hidden clock, we begin to see that the 23.5-degree tilt of our planet has created more than just predictable patterns of temperature and daylight. It has created the fundamental rhythm of life itself, the pulse between activity and rest, growth and dormancy, abundance and conservation that makes long-term survival possible in a dynamic world. This rhythm connects us to everything else that lives, from the tiniest microbe responding to seasonal changes in its environment to the largest whale following ancient migration routes. We are all dancers in the same cosmic ballet, all keeping time to the same celestial music, all participants in the grand seasonal symphony that has been playing for billions of years and will continue long after we're gone. The beauty of this realization is that it places our small human lives within a much larger context. Our daily struggles and joys, our personal seasons of growth and rest, our cycles of work and renewal are all part of something vast and ancient and utterly reliable. We are not alone in our rhythms, we share them with every living thing on Earth. All of us spinning together through space on our beautifully tilted world, all of us keeping time to the music of the spheres. And that music plays on, as constant as gravity, as predictable as sunrise, yet endlessly creative in its variations. Each season brings something new, even as it repeats patterns that are older than memory. Each year offers the same sequence of changes, yet never exactly the same experience. It's this combination of predictability and novelty, of ancient rhythm and fresh surprise, that makes the seasonal cycle one of nature's most perfect creations. In the grand symphony of our tilted planet, every creature plays its part, every season contributes its voice, and every year adds another movement to a composition that grows richer and more complex with each passing cycle. We are privileged to be conscious participants in this magnificent performance, aware enough to appreciate its beauty, wise enough to marvel at its complexity, and humble enough to recognize our place within its vast, encompassing embrace. But there's another dimension to this seasonal story that we haven't yet explored, one that reveals just how deeply the rhythm of our tilted world has shaped not just life on Earth, but the very architecture of our planet itself. Because the seasons don't just influence living things, they sculpt landscapes, carve valleys, build mountains, and paint the surface of our world in ways that would be impossible without the eternal dance between our planet and the sun. Consider the humble process of weathering the slow breakdown of rock that seems so removed from the grand celestial mechanics we've been exploring. Yet even this most basic geological process pulses to the rhythm of our tilted Earth. In regions that experience freeze-thaw cycles, seasonal temperature variations become one of the most powerful forces shaping the landscape. Water seeps into cracks in rock during warmer months, then expands with tremendous force when winter temperatures cause it to freeze. This expansion can split boulders as cleanly as any quarryman's chisel, breaking down mountains grain by grain, season by season. Over millions of years, this seasonal breathing of the landscape, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of winter and summer, has carved some of Earth's most spectacular features. The sharp peaks of high mountain ranges owe much of their dramatic profile to countless cycles of freeze and thaw. The smooth, rounded hills of temperate regions tell a different story, shaped by gentler seasonal processes that wear away rough edges over vast spans of time. Rivers, too, flow to a seasonal rhythm that reflects the tilt of our world. In regions with distinct wet and dry seasons, rivers swell and shrink in predictable cycles, carving their channels deeper during flood seasons and depositing sediment during quieter times. These seasonal pulses of water flow create the meandering patterns we see from above rivers that snake across landscapes in curves and loops that record the memory of countless seasonal flood cycles. The great river deltas of the world are essentially seasonal calendars written in mud and silt. Each year's flood deposits a new layer of sediment, building up vast plains that provide some of Earth's most fertile agricultural land. The Nile Delta, the Mississippi Delta, the Ganges Delta, these are all monuments to the seasonal rhythm, built grain by grain through thousands of years of rivers, responding to the predictable cycle of wet and dry seasons driven by our planet's orbital position. Even the oceans carry the signature of seasonal change in their very chemistry. Seasonal variations in river flow alter the salinity and nutrient content of coastal waters in predictable patterns. Seasonal changes in temperature and wind patterns drive the great ocean currents that redistribute heat around our planet. The Gulf Stream, that vast river of warm water that keeps Europe's climate surprisingly mild, varies in strength and position with seasonal changes in atmospheric pressure patterns. Perhaps most remarkably, the seasonal rhythm has even influenced the evolution of the atmosphere itself. The annual cycle of plant growth and dormancy creates a planetary breathing pattern that can be measured from space. During the growing season in the northern hemisphere, where most of Earth's landmass is concentrated, vast forests and grasslands absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. During the dormant season, decomposition of fallen leaves and reduced plant activity releases that carbon back to the air. This creates an annual pulse in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels that scientists can track year after year. It's like taking the pulse of the entire planet, watching it breathe in and out with the rhythm of the seasons. The amplitude of this breathing has grown stronger in recent decades, as the growing season has lengthened and plant productivity has increased in many regions. Another reminder that we live on a dynamic planet where everything is connected to everything else through the mediating influence of seasonal change. The seasonal rhythm even extends into the realm of fire, one of Earth's most transformative forces. In many ecosystems, seasonal dry periods create the conditions for natural fires that have shaped landscapes for millions of years. These aren't disasters but essential ecological processes, as predictable and necessary as spring growth or autumn leaf fall. Many plant species have evolved not just to survive fires but to depend on them, timing their reproduction to the seasonal fire cycles that clear away competing vegetation and create opportunities for new growth. The great grasslands of the world, the prairies of North America, the pampas of South America, the steppes of Asia, are all products of seasonal fire cycles. Without regular burning during dry seasons, these grasslands would gradually be invaded by woody plants and transformed into forests. The seasonal rhythm of growth and fire maintains the open character of these landscapes, creating habitat for the vast herds of grazing animals that have played such important roles in human history. Even ice, that seemingly simple substance, dances to the seasonal rhythm in ways that shape continents. In polar regions, the annual cycle of ice formation and melting creates forces powerful enough to carve fjords, polish entire mountain ranges smooth, and transport enormous boulders across vast distances. The great ice sheets that periodically advance and retreat over geological time follow their own long seasonal rhythms, cycles of tens of thousands of years driven by slow changes in Earth's orbital characteristics. But it's not just the grand geological processes that bear the signature of seasonal change. Look closely at any landscape, and you'll find seasonal rhythms written in the smallest details. The patterns of erosion on a hillside, carved by seasonal rains. The arrangement of rocks in a streambed, sorted and resorted by countless cycles of seasonal flooding. The very soil beneath your feet, mixed and enriched by seasonal cycles of plant growth and decay, freeze and thaw, wet and dry. These geological processes operate on timescales that dwarf human experience, yet they're intimately connected to the same astronomical rhythm that brings us spring flowers and autumn colours. A mountain peak wearing away grain by grain under the assault of seasonal freeze-thaw cycles is responding to the same 23.5-degree tilt that tells a robin when to build its nest. This connection between the astronomical and the geological, between the cosmic and the intimate, reveals something profound about the nature of time itself on our planet. There is no single rhythm governing Earth's processes. Instead, there are rhythms within rhythms, cycles within cycles, all nested together like Russian dolls. The daily rotation of our planet creates the rhythm of day and night. The monthly orbit of our moon creates the rhythm of tides. The annual orbit of our tilted world creates the rhythm of seasons. And longer cycles, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, the gradual changes in our orbital characteristics, create rhythms that play out over thousands and millions of years. Yet all of these rhythms are connected, each influencing the others in subtle ways. The tidal forces created by our moon's orbit are strongest during certain seasons. The seasonal changes in atmospheric circulation affect the length of each day by tiny fractions of a second. The long-term climate cycles that trigger ice ages interact with seasonal patterns to create complex feedback loops that can amplify or dampen change. Living things have evolved to respond not just to single rhythms but to the complex interplay between multiple cycles. A bird timing its migration must coordinate not just with seasonal changes in day length, but with lunar cycles that affect tidal patterns, weather systems that vary on both daily and seasonal timescales, and food availability that depends on the complex interaction between seasonal plant growth and shorter-term weather patterns. This multi-layered nature of Earth's rhythms creates what we might call temporal biodiversity, a richness of different time patterns that provides opportunities for life to adapt and specialize in countless different ways. Just as spatial biodiversity creates countless ecological niches based on different physical environments, temporal biodiversity creates countless chronological niches based on different time patterns. Some organisms specialize in responding to daily cycles, others to monthly cycles, still others to annual cycles, or even longer patterns. Some creatures live their entire lives within a single season, while others span multiple decades, experiencing hundreds of seasonal cycles. This temporal diversity is just as important to the functioning of ecosystems as the more obvious spatial diversity we see when we look at different habitats. The seasonal rhythm also creates what ecologists call temporal refugia periods, when conditions are favorable for particular species or processes. For many organisms, certain seasons provide windows of opportunity when competition is reduced, resources are abundant, or environmental conditions are optimal. These temporal refugia are just as important as spatial refugia in allowing species to persist through challenging periods. Desert wildflowers provide a beautiful example of temporal refugia. For most of the year, desert soils appear lifeless, baked hard under relentless sun. But these seemingly barren landscapes contain vast seed banks, millions of seeds lying dormant, waiting for the brief seasonal windows when rainfall creates conditions suitable for growth. When those windows open, deserts can transform almost overnight into spectacular displays of color as countless plants race to complete their life cycles before the harsh conditions return. This boom and bust pattern, synchronized to seasonal rainfall patterns, allows desert ecosystems to support far more biodiversity than would be possible if resources were distributed evenly throughout the year. The seasonal concentration of resources creates opportunities for specialization, with different species timing their activities to different parts of the seasonal cycle. The same principle operates in temperate forests, where the brief period between snowmelt and leaf emergence creates a temporal refuge for spring wildflowers. These ephemeral plants have evolved to complete their entire above-ground life cycle in the few weeks when the forest floor receives full sunlight. By the time the tree canopy closes and plunges the forest floor into deep shade, these plants have already photosynthesized enough energy to survive another year and have produced seeds for the next generation. Even marine ecosystems show similar patterns of temporal refugia linked to seasonal cycles. The brief summer growing season in polar waters creates spectacular blooms of plankton that support vast populations of fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. These animals often time their reproduction to coincide with peak food availability, cramming a year's worth of growth and reproduction into a few months of abundance. This temporal dimension of biodiversity reveals yet another way that our planet's tilt has shaped the evolution of life. By creating predictable cycles of opportunity and challenge, the seasonal rhythm has driven the evolution of increasingly sophisticated biological clocks and timing mechanisms. Life has learned not just to tolerate seasonal change, but to anticipate it, prepare for it, and ultimately to thrive because of it. The result is a world where timing is everything, where the difference between success and failure often comes down to being in the right place at the right time in the seasonal cycle. A flower that blooms too early may be killed by a late frost. A flower that blooms too late may miss the peak activity of its pollinators. A bird that begins migration too early may arrive at its destination before food is available. A bird that leaves too late may encounter severe weather that makes the journey impossible. Yet this sensitivity to timing, which might seem like a vulnerability, actually represents one of life's greatest strengths. By evolving exquisite sensitivity to seasonal cues, organisms have learned to surf the wave of seasonal change rather than being overwhelmed by it. They've turned the challenge of living on a tilted planet into an opportunity for spectacular diversification and adaptation. This is perhaps the most beautiful aspect of the seasonal story, the way that what might have been a constraint has become a source of endless creativity. The 23.5-degree tilt that creates our seasons could have made life more difficult, more precarious, more limited in its possibilities. Instead, it has made life more diverse, more resilient, more wondrously complex than it ever could have been on a planet without seasons. Every spring migration, every autumn color change, every winter adaptation, every summer bloom represents a solution to the challenge of living on a tilted world. And each solution is unique, creative, perfectly adapted to its particular circumstances. The seasonal rhythm hasn't constrained evolution. It has inspired it, challenged it, driven it to heights of complexity and beauty that would have been impossible in a world without seasons. As we near the end of our gentle journey through climate's hidden clock, we begin to see that the story of seasons is really the story of life itself, learning to dance with time. It's the story of a planet and its inhabitants locked in an eternal waltz, spinning through space together, each partner responding to the other's movements with grace and precision that has been perfected over billions of years. We are part of this dance, whether we realize it or not. Every breath we take, every meal we eat, every step we walk is connected to the seasonal rhythm that governs our tilted world. We carry within our bodies the memory of countless seasonal cycles, encoded in our genes, written in our bones, flowing in our blood. We are seasonal creatures living on a seasonal planet, participants in a cosmic dance that is both ancient beyond imagination and as immediate as the changing light outside our windows. And the dance continues, reliable as clockwork, yet endlessly surprising in its variations, as predictable as mathematics, yet as beautiful as poetry, as vast as the cosmos, yet as intimate as the changing seasons of our own brief lives. In the rhythm of seasons, we find both the grandest patterns of the universe and the most personal experiences of our daily existence, all woven together in the endless, elegant dance of our beautifully tilted world. Yet there's a story within this story that we haven't fully explored. one that reveals how the seasonal rhythm reaches beyond our planet, connecting Earth to the vast cosmic neighborhood we call home. Because the 23.5-degree tilt that creates our seasons is just one note in a much larger celestial symphony, one that plays out across our entire solar system and beyond. Consider our neighboring planets, each spinning through space with their own unique relationships to the Sun. Mars, our rusty red neighbor, tilts at nearly the same angle as Earth, about 25 degrees. This similarity means that Mars experiences seasons much like ours, though each lasts about twice as long because Mars takes nearly 2 Earth years to complete its orbit around the Sun. When space missions photograph Mars through different seasons, we see familiar sights: polar ice caps that grow and shrink with the changing seasons, dust storms that follow predictable seasonal patterns, and even something resembling autumn colors as the thin Martian atmosphere responds to changing solar radiation. But venture farther from the Sun, and the seasonal stories become far stranger. Jupiter, that massive giant with its swirling storms, tilts only 3 degrees from vertical, barely any tilt at all. This means Jupiter experiences virtually no seasonal change. Its weather patterns are driven not by seasonal variations in sunlight, but by the planet's own internal heat and the complex dynamics of its thick atmosphere. A Jovian year lasts 12 Earth years, but without significant axial tilt, each part of Jupiter experiences essentially the same conditions year-round. Uranus presents perhaps the most extreme case in our solar system. This distant world tilts not 23 degrees like Earth, but a staggering 98 degrees. It essentially rolls along its orbital path like a barrel, rather than spinning like a top. This extreme tilt creates seasons so bizarre they seem like science fiction. Each pole experiences 42 years of continuous daylight, followed by 42 years of complete darkness. Imagine living through a summer that lasts longer than most human lifetimes, followed by an equally long winter of perpetual night. These planetary comparisons help us appreciate just how special Earth's moderate tilt really is. 23.5 degrees turns out to be something of a cosmic sweet spot, enough tilt to create distinct seasons that drive biological and geological diversity, but not so much as to create conditions too extreme for complex life to flourish. We inhabit what astronomers call the Goldilocks zone, not just in terms of our distance from the Sun, but in terms of our axial tilt as well. This cosmic perspective reveals that our seasonal rhythm is simultaneously common and rare in the universe. The physics that create seasons, the interaction between axial tilt and orbital motion, operate wherever planets orbit stars. Yet the specific combination of tilt angle, orbital period, atmospheric composition, and distance from the star that creates Earth-like seasons may be relatively uncommon among the countless worlds that populate our galaxy. When astronomers search for potentially habitable planets around other stars, they look not just for worlds in the right temperature zone, but for planets with stable, moderate axial tilts. A world that wobbles chaotically or tilts too extremely might experience climate variations so severe that complex life could never gain a foothold. The seasonal rhythm we take for granted may be one of the key factors that made Earth suitable for the explosion of life we see around us. But the cosmic connection goes deeper than mere planetary comparison. The very existence of Earth's stable tilt, and therefore our stable seasons, depends on our relationship with the Moon. Without our unusually large satellite, Earth's axial tilt would be much less stable over geological time. The gravitational influence of our Moon acts like a gyroscope, keeping Earth's tilt within a relatively narrow range and preventing the chaotic climate variations that might otherwise occur. This lunar stabilization means that the seasonal patterns we've been exploring haven't just existed for a few million years, they've persisted for billions of years, providing the stable environmental framework within which life could evolve the sophisticated seasonal adaptations we see today. The same Moon that creates our ocean tides also helps maintain the seasonal rhythm that shapes every aspect of terrestrial life. The cosmic dance extends even further. when we consider how our entire solar system moves through the galaxy. As our sun orbits the galactic center, carrying all its planets along, we experience variations in cosmic radiation and stellar influences that operate on timescales of millions of years. These galactic seasons, if we can call them that, may have influenced the long-term evolution of life on Earth, creating cycles of extinction and diversification that parallel the shorter seasonal cycles we experience year to year. Even the composition of Earth's atmosphere bears the signature of seasonal change operating over cosmic timescales. The oxygen we breathe exists in our atmosphere largely because of seasonal photosynthesis cycles that have operated for billions of years. Each year's seasonal cycle of plant growth and decay has contributed to the gradual accumulation of oxygen that makes complex life possible. In a very real sense, every breath we take connects us not just to the current seasonal cycle, but to countless seasonal cycles stretching back through geological time. This temporal layering daily cycles, nested within seasonal cycles, nested within longer astronomical cycles, nested within galactic cycles, creates what we might think of as the architecture of time on Earth. Each layer influences the others, creating patterns within patterns, rhythms within rhythms, all synchronized by the fundamental physics of objects moving through space under the influence of gravity. The study of these nested rhythms has become one of the most exciting frontiers in both astronomy and biology. Scientists are discovering that many biological processes thought to operate on simple daily or seasonal cycles actually respond to much more complex temporal signatures. Some organisms seem to track not just the current season but longer-term climate patterns, adjusting their behavior based on multi-year cycles of abundance and scarcity. Certain trees, for example, produce heavy seed crops not every year but every few years, in cycles that may be synchronized across vast forest regions. These masting events, as they're called, may represent responses to longer-term astronomical cycles that affect solar radiation patterns. The trees aren't just responding to this year's seasonal cues, they're somehow tracking longer-term patterns that operate on timescales of decades or centuries. Similarly, some animal populations show cyclic fluctuations that seem to track longer-term climate oscillations like El Niño and La Niña patterns, which themselves are influenced by seasonal variations in solar heating of different ocean regions. These connections suggest that the seasonal rhythm operates not just as an annual cycle, but as part of a much more complex temporal ecosystem, where patterns on many different timescales interact and influence each other. The implications of this cosmic perspective extend into our understanding of climate change and environmental stability. When we alter the seasonal patterns through changes in atmospheric composition, we're not just affecting this year's growing season, we're potentially disrupting temporal patterns that have been stable for geological periods. The seasonal migrations of birds, the timing of plant flowering, the synchronization between predators and prey, all of these may be thrown out of balance when the basic seasonal framework shifts. Yet life's response to these challenges also reveals the deep resilience built into systems that have evolved within the seasonal framework. Many species show remarkable flexibility in their seasonal timing, able to adjust their biological calendars as conditions change. Plants flower earlier when spring arrives sooner. Birds adjust their migration timing as temperature patterns shift. These adaptations suggest that the seasonal rhythm has created not just precise timing mechanisms but flexible ones, biological systems capable of tracking environmental change and adjusting accordingly. This adaptive capacity represents one of the most hopeful aspects of the seasonal story. Life has been dealing with changing seasonal patterns for billions of years as continents have drifted, ice ages have come and gone, and the solar system has moved through different regions of the galaxy. The mechanisms that allow organisms to track and respond to seasonal change may also allow them to adapt to the changing seasonal patterns of our current era. The seasonal rhythm also provides a framework for understanding our place in the larger cosmic story. We are not separate from the astronomical forces that govern planetary motion, we are participants in them. Every seasonal change we experience connects us to the fundamental physics of the universe. Gravity, momentum, the behavior of light, the properties of matter and energy. The same forces that keep planets in their orbits also determine when flowers bloom and when birds migrate. This connection between the cosmic and the intimate gives the seasonal cycle a profound philosophical dimension. In experiencing the rhythm of seasons, we're experiencing the universe itself, feeling in our daily lives the effects of vast cosmic processes that operate on scales almost too large to comprehend. The changing light of autumn afternoons carries information about Earth's position in its orbit around the Sun. The timing of spring's arrival reflects the precise geometry of our planet's tilt relative to incoming solar radiation. Human cultures have always sensed this cosmic dimension of seasonal change, even without the scientific framework to fully understand it. Ancient monuments like Stonehenge and the pyramids were oriented to track seasonal changes in the sun's position, suggesting that our ancestors understood intuitively that seasonal rhythms connected them to something larger than daily human concerns. Traditional calendars around the world were based on careful observation of seasonal astronomical markers, the positions of stars, the phases of the moon, the changing elevation of the sun at noon. These ancient practices reveal a wisdom that modern life sometimes obscures. We are not separate from nature but part of it, and the natural world is not separate from the cosmos but intimately connected to it. The seasonal rhythm that shapes our planet operates according to the same physical laws that govern the most distant galaxies. In learning to live in harmony with seasonal change, we're learning to align ourselves with the fundamental patterns of the universe itself. This cosmic perspective also helps us understand why the seasonal rhythm feels so deeply meaningful to human consciousness. We respond to seasonal change not just as biological organisms adapted to cyclical environmental variation, but as conscious beings capable of recognizing our participation in patterns much larger than ourselves. The melancholy of autumn, the hope of spring, the expansiveness of summer, the introspection of winter, these emotional responses may reflect our intuitive recognition of our place in the vast cosmic dance. The seasonal cycle teaches us about time itself, not just clock time or calendar time, but the deep time of astronomical cycles, geological processes, and evolutionary change. It shows us how different scales of time are nested within each other, how the immediate and the eternal are connected, how the fleeting moment and the everlasting pattern are both real and both meaningful. In the gentle transition from summer to autumn, we witness the same gravitational forces that govern the motion of galaxies. In the first green shoots of spring, we see the result of precise astronomical positioning that connects our small patch of Earth to the vast machinery of the solar system. In the long sleep of winter, we participate in rhythms that have been unfolding for billions of years and will continue long after our brief human moment has passed. Yet this cosmic scale doesn't diminish the personal meaning of seasonal change, it enriches it. Knowing that the autumn colours outside our window are created by the same astronomical forces that govern distant worlds doesn't make them less beautiful. It makes them more beautiful, connecting our immediate aesthetic experience to the fundamental harmony of the universe. Understanding that spring's arrival reflects precise celestial mechanics doesn't make it less hopeful. It makes it more hopeful, revealing the reliability and predictability that underlie apparent change and uncertainty. The seasonal rhythm thus becomes a bridge between the scientific and the poetic, between the measurable and the meaningful, between our small human lives and the vast cosmic context within which they unfold. It reminds us that we are both insignificant specks in an enormous universe and integral participants in patterns of breathtaking beauty and complexity. As we continue to explore the implications of our planet's seasonal rhythm, we discover that it offers not just intellectual understanding, but practical wisdom for living. The seasonal cycle teaches patience, the understanding that change unfolds in its own time, according to patterns larger than our immediate desires. It teaches acceptance, the recognition that periods of dormancy and difficulty are as necessary as periods of growth and abundance. It teaches hope, the faith that spring follows winter as surely as the earth continues its ancient dance around the sun. And perhaps most importantly, the seasonal rhythm teaches presence, the ability to fully experience each moment while understanding it as part of a larger pattern. When we align ourselves with seasonal change, we learn to be fully present in summer's abundance while preparing for autumn's transition, to rest deeply in winter's stillness while remaining open to spring's eventual return. This is the deepest gift of understanding climate's hidden clock. Not just knowledge about astronomical mechanics or biological rhythms, but wisdom about how to live in harmony with patterns much larger and more enduring than ourselves. In learning to read the subtle signals of seasonal change, the angle of light, the quality of air, the behavior of plants and animals, we develop a form of literacy that connects us to both the earth beneath our feet and the cosmos above our heads. The story continues to unfold around us every day, written in the changing light outside our windows, whispered by the wind in the trees, painted across the sky in the endless progression of weather and season. We are characters in this story, conscious participants in a cosmic drama that began long before we arrived and will continue long after we're gone. Yet our brief moment of awareness allows us to appreciate the story's beauty, to understand something of its plot, and to play our small part with greater intention and grace. In the rhythm of seasons, we find both the pattern that shapes our daily lives and the cosmic context that gives those lives meaning. We discover that we are simultaneously creatures of time and participants in timelessness, shaped by change and connected to what endures, individual expressions of patterns that are both ancient and eternal. And the dance goes on, as reliable as mathematics, yet as surprising as poetry, as predictable as planetary motion, yet as fresh as each new season's first day, carrying us forward through time while connecting us to rhythms that transcend time, reminding us always that we are home here on this tilted world, part of something vast and beautiful and endlessly, mysteriously alive. This cosmic awareness of our place in the seasonal dance brings us to one of the most remarkable aspects of Earth's tilted rhythm, how it has shaped not just individual organisms or ecosystems, but entire civilizations. The rise and fall of human societies, the development of agriculture, the birth of art and philosophy, even the patterns of our deepest spiritual yearnings, all bear the subtle imprint of our planet's seasonal pulse. Think about the moment when our ancestors first began to plant seeds in the ground, rather than simply gathering what grew wild. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough, it was a profound act of faith in the seasonal rhythm. To plant a seed requires absolute trust that spring will come, that the rains will fall at the right time, that the sun will trace its familiar path across the sky for months to come. Agriculture is essentially applied astronomy, a practical demonstration of humanity's growing understanding of our planet's relationship with the sun. The first farmers were also the first climate scientists, carefully observing the subtle signs that indicated when to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for winter's arrival. They learned to read the sky like a calendar, tracking the positions of stars and the changing angle of sunlight with precision that would impress modern astronomers. The ancient Egyptians based their entire agricultural calendar on the heliacal rising of Sirius, the bright star whose appearance just before dawn marked the beginning of the Nile's annual flood. These observations weren't merely practical, they became the foundation for humanity's first attempts to understand our place in the cosmos. The seasonal cycle was perhaps our species' first glimpse into the mathematical precision underlying natural processes. The exact predictability of seasonal change revealed that the universe operated according to comprehensible patterns rather than the whims of capricious gods. From this understanding grew the first calendars, those remarkable human inventions that attempted to capture cosmic time in countable units. The challenge of creating an accurate calendar, one that would keep agricultural and religious observances aligned with actual seasonal events, drove some of humanity's earliest scientific innovations. The discrepancy between the lunar month and the solar year led to increasingly sophisticated mathematical solutions, from the leap days of the Julian calendar to the complex calculations that govern our modern Gregorian system. But calendars were more than practical tools. They were humanity's first scientific instruments, devices for measuring and predicting celestial events. In learning to track the seasonal cycle accurately, we developed the mathematical and observational skills that would eventually lead to our modern understanding of planetary motion, stellar distances, and the structure of the universe itself. The seasonal rhythm also shaped the very architecture of human settlements. Traditional homes in seasonal climates were oriented to take advantage of the sun's changing path across the sky, south-facing windows to capture winter warmth, overhanging eaves to provide summer shade, thick walls to moderate the temperature swings that accompany seasonal change. These weren't arbitrary design choices, but sophisticated responses to the astronomical reality of living on a tilted planet. Entire cities were planned around seasonal patterns. The great plazas of ancient civilizations were often oriented to frame the sunrise or sunset on significant seasonal dates. The streets of many traditional towns run east-west to maximize solar gain in winter while minimizing it in summer. Even today, urban planners consider seasonal sun angles when designing parks, positioning buildings, and creating outdoor spaces that remain comfortable throughout the year. The influence of seasonal rhythm extends deep into the realm of human psychology and culture. The great mythological traditions of the world are filled with stories that mirror the seasonal cycle tales of death and rebirth, of gods who disappear into the underworld only to return with renewed life, of heroes who must endure trials in dark places before emerging into light. These stories aren't just entertainment. They're humanity's attempt to understand our own place within the greater pattern of seasonal change. Consider the universal human fascination with festivals of light during the darkest time of year. From the ancient Roman Saturnalia to modern Christmas celebrations, from Diwali to Hanukkah to the winter solstice gatherings of countless cultures, humans have consistently chosen to celebrate hope and renewal precisely when the natural world seems most dormant. These festivals represent a profound intuitive understanding of the seasonal cycle, a recognition that the darkest moment also marks the turning point toward returning light. Similarly, spring festivals around the world celebrate themes of renewal, fertility, and new beginnings. The timing of these celebrations isn't coincidental. They represent humanity's conscious participation in the seasonal rhythm, our choice to align our social and spiritual lives with the cosmic patterns that govern our planet. The seasonal cycle has also profoundly influenced human artistic expression. The changing quality of light throughout the year has inspired painters from Monet to Van Gogh to capture the subtle variations in color and shadow that mark each season's passage. Composers have written symphonies that mirror the emotional arc of the seasonal year, from Vivaldi's famous Four Seasons to countless folk songs that celebrate specific seasonal moments. Literature, too, is saturated with seasonal metaphors that reflect our deep psychological connection to the rhythm of the tilted earth. We speak of the spring of youth and the winter of old age, of the harvest of experience and the seeds of possibility. These aren't mere poetic devices. They represent a fundamental human understanding that our personal lives mirror the larger patterns of seasonal change. But perhaps nowhere is the influence of seasonal rhythm more evident than in the development of human spiritual and philosophical traditions. The great wisdom traditions of the world consistently use seasonal metaphors to describe spiritual development, the dark night of the soul that precedes enlightenment, the spiritual spring that follows periods of inner dormancy, the ripening of wisdom like fruit in autumn's abundance. Many contemplative practices explicitly align themselves with seasonal change. Meditation retreats are often scheduled to coincide with seasonal transitions. Monastic communities structure their daily and yearly routines around the changing rhythms of light and darkness. Even secular mindfulness practices increasingly recognize the value of aligning human activity with natural seasonal patterns rather than fighting against them. This alignment isn't just metaphorical. Research suggests that humans who live in closer harmony with seasonal rhythms experience better physical and mental health. Our body's circadian rhythms, those internal clocks that govern everything from sleep patterns to hormone production, evolved in relationship to seasonal changes in daylight exposure. When we disconnect too completely from these natural rhythms, working under artificial light year-round, eating foods out of season, maintaining the same activity levels regardless of the time of year, we may be working against patterns that are literally written into our DNA. Modern life offers us unprecedented freedom from seasonal constraints. We can eat strawberries in January, swim in heated pools during December, travel instantly from winter to summer by boarding an airplane. This liberation from seasonal limitation has brought tremendous benefits, allowing human civilization to flourish in environments and ways that would have been impossible for our ancestors. Yet this freedom also comes with subtle costs. Many people report feeling disconnected from natural rhythms, experiencing what might be called seasonal jet lag, even without leaving their home time zone. The constant availability of summer foods in winter, the uniform lighting of indoor environments, the expectation of maintaining peak productivity year-round, all of these modern conveniences may contribute to a sense of temporal displacement that affects both physical and psychological well-being. There's growing interest in what might be called seasonal living, a conscious choice to align human activity more closely with natural rhythms. This doesn't mean abandoning modern conveniences, but rather using our understanding of seasonal patterns to enhance rather than override our natural rhythms. Eating more locally grown, seasonal foods, adjusting activity levels to match seasonal energy patterns, creating living and working environments that acknowledge seasonal changes in light and temperature. Schools in some progressive communities are experimenting with seasonal curricula that take advantage of natural learning rhythms. Children might study botany in spring when plants are beginning their growth cycle, explore astronomy during winter's long nights, or focus on physical activities during summer's energetic peak. These approaches recognize that humans, like other organisms, may be naturally more receptive to certain types of learning at different times of the year. The business world, too, is beginning to acknowledge seasonal rhythms. Some companies now adjust work schedules to account for seasonal changes in daylight, recognizing that productivity patterns may naturally vary throughout the year. The concept of seasonal affective disorder has led to workplace lighting systems that automatically adjust color temperature and intensity to mirror natural seasonal changes in sunlight. Even our understanding of human health is being revolutionized by recognition of seasonal patterns. Doctors now know that certain medical conditions follow predictable seasonal cycles, not just obvious cases like seasonal allergies, but more subtle patterns like seasonal variations in blood pressure, immune function, and even the effectiveness of certain medications. The timing of medical treatments is increasingly considered as carefully as the choice of treatment itself. This growing awareness of seasonal influence in human affairs represents a kind of coming home to patterns our ancestors understood intuitively, but that modern life had temporarily obscured. We're rediscovering that we are seasonal creatures living on a seasonal planet, and that our well-being depends not just on overcoming seasonal constraints, but on learning to dance gracefully with seasonal change. The implications extend far beyond individual health and happiness. Climate change, perhaps the greatest challenge facing our species, is fundamentally a disruption of seasonal patterns on a global scale. Rising temperatures aren't just making summers hotter, they're altering the timing of spring growth, shifting the patterns of precipitation, changing the behavior of atmospheric and oceanic circulation systems that have operated in predictable seasonal cycles for millions of years. Understanding the deep importance of seasonal rhythm helps us appreciate why these changes are so profound. When we alter the seasonal framework within which all life has evolved, we're not just changing the weather, We're disrupting the temporal architecture that structures biological and ecological processes. The mismatches between flowering times and pollinator activity, the confusion in migration timing, the disruption of food webs, all of these climate change impacts reflect the breakdown of seasonal synchronization that has taken millions of years to evolve. Yet our growing understanding of seasonal rhythm also suggests pathways forward. If we can learn to read the subtle signals of seasonal change more skillfully, we may be able to help both human and natural systems adapt to changing patterns. If we can design our cities, our agriculture, our social institutions to be more responsive to seasonal variation, we may be able to create resilient systems that can adjust to new seasonal patterns while maintaining their essential functions. The seasonal story also offers hope because it reminds us that change and constancy are not opposites but partners in an eternal dance. The seasonal cycle is simultaneously the most changeable and the most reliable aspect of Earth's climate. Every season is different from the one before, yet the pattern of seasonal change itself has remained constant for billions of years. This paradox suggests that adaptation and stability can coexist, that systems can be simultaneously flexible and enduring. As we face an uncertain climatic future, the seasonal rhythm offers a template for resilience. It shows us how complex systems can maintain their essential character while constantly adapting to changing conditions. It demonstrates how variation and stability can reinforce each other rather than conflict. It reveals how local adaptation and global patterns can work together to create systems that are both diverse and coherent. The 23.5-degree tilt that creates our seasons thus becomes more than just an astronomical curiosity. It becomes a masterclass in how to live with change. Every organism that has learned to thrive in seasonal environments has developed strategies that human societies might emulate. The ability to prepare for predictable changes, the wisdom to rest during difficult periods, the capacity to take advantage of favorable conditions when they arise, and above all, the patience to trust in larger patterns even when immediate circumstances are challenging. In this light, the seasonal rhythm becomes not just a natural phenomenon to be studied, but a teacher from whom we might learn. The tilt of our planet has created a world where change is constant but patterned, where disruption and renewal are equally necessary, where the capacity to adapt is as important as the ability to endure. These lessons, written in the changing light of each passing day, offer guidance for navigating not just the challenges of climate change, but the fundamental challenge of being alive in a dynamic universe. As we prepare to conclude our gentle journey through climate's hidden clock, we find that the story of seasons opens into ever-widening circles of meaning and connection. What began as a simple question about why leaves change color has led us through astronomy and biology, geology and psychology, history and philosophy, always returning to the same profound truth. We live on a world where everything is connected to everything else through the mediating rhythm of seasonal change. The tilt that creates our seasons has shaped every aspect of existence on Earth, from the smallest microbe to the largest ecosystem, from the earliest human settlements to our most advanced technologies. It continues to influence our daily lives in ways both obvious and subtle, connecting us to patterns that are simultaneously ancient and immediate, local and cosmic, personal and universal. In understanding the rhythm of seasons, we discover not just how our world works, but how we might work better within it. We learn to read the subtle signs of change, to prepare for transitions, to find meaning in cycles that transcend individual lifespans. We discover that we are part of something much larger than ourselves while remaining fully, uniquely ourselves. The dance continues, as it has for billions of years, as it will for billions more. Each day brings subtle changes in the angle of light. Each season offers its own gifts and challenges. Each year completes another revolution in the endless spiral of time. And we, conscious participants in this cosmic choreography, have the privilege of witnessing its beauty, understanding something of its pattern, and adding our own small but significant steps to the eternal dance of our beautifully tilted world. And so, dear friend, as the last notes of our seasonal symphony fade into the quiet of this moment, we find ourselves back where we began, in the gentle embrace of wonder, in the soft recognition that we are part of something infinitely larger and more beautiful than we often remember in our daily rush through time. Tonight, we've drifted through the grand architecture of seasons, following the invisible threads that connect the tilt of our world to every breath of wind, every turning leaf, every bird that knows precisely when to begin its impossible journey across continents. We've seen how a simple geometric fact, 23.5 degrees of inclination, has woven itself into the fabric of everything that lives, creating the rhythm that shapes forests and civilizations, that guides the pulse of ocean currents and the beating of human hearts. The story we've shared is both ancient and immediate, as old as the first light that ever fell across our tilted planet, and as fresh as tomorrow morning's sunrise. It's written in the fossil record, and in the seasonal adjustments of your own circadian rhythms. It's carved into mountain ranges, and whispered in the timing of a flower's bloom. It speaks through the migrations of whales, and the architectural wisdom of ancient peoples who built their temples to frame the returning sun. What strikes me most profoundly about this seasonal tale is how it reminds us that we are not separate from the natural world. We are expressions of it. The same astronomical forces that determine when Arctic terns begin their pole-to-pole journeys also influence the subtle changes in our sleep patterns as winter approaches. The same solar geometry that triggers autumn's spectacular display of colour also shapes the way different cultures have learned to mark time, to celebrate transitions, to find meaning in the eternal dance between constancy and change. We've discovered that the rhythm of seasons isn't just about weather patterns or biological cycles. It's about the fundamental nature of how complex systems maintain themselves over time. The seasonal pulse teaches us that sustainability isn't about avoiding change, but about dancing gracefully with it. That resilience comes not from rigidity, but from the ability to bend and flow while maintaining essential character. In following the thread of seasonal rhythm from astronomical mechanics to human consciousness, we've glimpsed something profound about the nature of existence itself. We live in a universe where the largest patterns and the most intimate experiences are connected by invisible threads of causation and meaning. The angle of sunlight streaming through your window this morning carries information about Earth's position in space. The timing of your deepest sleep reflects rhythms that connect you to every other living thing on the planet. This understanding offers us more than just knowledge, it offers wisdom for living. When we align ourselves with seasonal rhythms rather than fighting against them, we discover ways of being that are both more sustainable and more satisfying. We learn to rest deeply when rest is needed, to grow actively when conditions are favorable, to prepare thoughtfully for transitions we can see approaching. The seasonal cycle also teaches us about hope in its most fundamental form, not as wishful thinking, but as trust in patterns larger than our immediate circumstances. Spring follows winter not because we deserve it or because we've earned it, but because our planet continues its ancient dance around the sun. This reliability, this predictability of renewal, even after the darkest moments, offers a foundation for resilience that transcends individual challenges or cultural anxieties. Perhaps most beautifully, the story of seasons reminds us that we are participants in a cosmic conversation that has been unfolding for billions of years. Every seasonal transition we witness, every moment when we pause to notice the changing quality of light or the first hint of spring in the air, connects us to the vast community of life that has been responding to these same cues for eons. We share this seasonal sensitivity with ancient trees and migrating butterflies, with Arctic foxes growing their winter coats and desert flowers, waiting for precisely the right moment to bloom. In a world that often feels fragmented and disconnected, the seasonal rhythm offers us a sense of belonging to something coherent and enduring. We are part of the pattern, woven into the fabric of a tilted world that breathes with the seasons, that pulses with the rhythm of orbital mechanics, made manifest in the behavior of every living thing. As we've seen, this rhythm operates simultaneously on multiple scales, from the daily adjustments of individual organisms to the long-term evolution of entire ecosystems, from the intimate cycles of our personal lives to the grand movements of continents and climate systems. Understanding seasonal rhythm helps us navigate this complexity by recognizing that we exist within nested cycles, each operating at its own pace, but all connected through the mediating influence of our planet's relationship with the Sun. The climate changes we're experiencing today represent a disruption of these ancient patterns, but understanding seasonal rhythm also suggests pathways toward adaptation and resilience. If we can learn to read the subtle signals of environmental change with the same sensitivity that allows birds to time their migrations and trees to prepare for winter, we might develop the flexibility needed to thrive in a changing world. The seasonal story also offers perspective on the relationship between human time and natural time. Our clocks and calendars attempt to capture and organize temporal experience, but the seasonal rhythm reminds us that the most meaningful patterns often unfold according to their own logic. There is wisdom in learning to synchronize ourselves with these larger rhythms rather than expecting them to conform to our schedules. This doesn't mean abandoning the benefits of modern life, but rather integrating them more thoughtfully with the natural patterns that shaped our evolution. We might eat more seasonally, not as a rigid rule, but as a way of reconnecting with the cycles of local ecosystems. We might adjust our expectations of ourselves throughout the year, recognizing that periods of high activity and periods of rest are equally necessary for long-term well-being. The seasonal rhythm teaches us about timing, not just when to plant or harvest, but when to begin new projects, when to consolidate gains, when to let go of what no longer serves us. It offers a framework for understanding personal development as a cyclical rather than linear process, where apparent setbacks may be necessary preparations for future growth. In our exploration of climate's hidden clock, we've also discovered the deep connections between aesthetic experience and astronomical reality. The beauty we find in seasonal change isn't separate from the scientific understanding of what creates it, it's enhanced by that understanding. Knowing that autumn colors result from the complex biochemistry of trees preparing for winter doesn't diminish their beauty. It reveals the elegance of the processes that create beauty in the natural world. This integration of scientific understanding and aesthetic appreciation suggests a way of engaging with the world that is both rational and poetic, both analytical and wonder-filled. The seasonal story demonstrates that we don't have to choose between understanding and appreciation. We can cultivate both simultaneously, allowing each to enrich the other. As you settle into sleep tonight, wherever you are in the world, whatever season is painting your corner of the planet, remember that you are part of this ancient story that continues to unfold around us every day. The changing light outside your window, the subtle shifts in the air, the barely perceptible adjustments your body makes to the rhythm of days and nights, all of these connect you to patterns that are both deeply personal and utterly universal. The 23.5 degrees that tilt our world toward and away from the sun have created not just the seasons we experience, but the very possibility of complex life on Earth. They've given us the gift of variety within reliability, change within continuity, the endless creativity that emerges when stable patterns provide a framework for infinite variation. Tonight, as you drift toward dreams, you carry within you the memory of countless seasonal cycles, the accumulated wisdom of ancestors who learned to read the sky like a calendar, the genetic inheritance of organisms that have been dancing to the rhythm of our tilted world for millions of generations. You are a seasonal being, on a seasonal planet, connected through invisible threads to every other participant in this cosmic choreography. The dance continues while you sleep, as reliable as gravity, as predictable as mathematics, yet as surprising and beautiful as poetry. Somewhere, dawn is breaking over landscapes you'll never see. Somewhere, the first flowers of spring are preparing to bloom. Somewhere, leaves are beginning their transformation into autumn gold. Somewhere, snow is falling in the deep quiet of winter night. And all of it, every moment of seasonal change happening right now across our tilted world, is connected to the gentle mathematics of orbital mechanics, to the patient physics of our planet's dance around the sun. The same forces that govern the motion of galaxies also determine when the crocus pushes through the last snow of winter. The same principles that structure the cosmos also shape the most intimate details of how we experience time. This is the final gift of understanding climate's hidden clock, the recognition that we live in a universe where the cosmic and the personal are not separate realms, but different expressions of the same underlying harmony. In learning to read the rhythm of seasons, we develop a form of literacy that connects us simultaneously to the earth beneath our feet and the stars above our heads. Sleep well, fellow traveller in time. Dream of the endless dance of our beautifully tilted world, of the seasons that have shaped every story ever told, of the gentle certainty that spring follows winter as surely as our planet continues its ancient waltz through space. And when you wake, notice the light, how it falls differently than it did yesterday, how it carries within it the quiet news of our world's position in its eternal journey around the sun. The rhythm plays on, patient and persistent and endlessly, mysteriously alive. And we, conscious notes in this cosmic symphony, have the extraordinary privilege of not just participating in the music, but of understanding something of its structure, appreciating its beauty, and adding our own small but essential harmonies to the song that began billions of years ago and will continue long after we've returned to the elements from which we came. Thank you for joining me on this gentle journey through the seasons of our tilted world. Until we meet again in the quiet corners of wonder, may your days be filled with the subtle magic of seasonal change, and may your nights be peaceful with the knowledge that you belong here, now, in this moment of the endless dance.